the fell. I am here with Mr. Matt Aaron with part 2 of the getting the Necrons to be the universe galaxy dominating machine in the Long Wars double in 6 weeks. 2,000 points of Necron army to tabletop plus standard in only 6 weeks. You say that things are going well, and then you got struck down by plague, and then you thought, you know what I think it was, is because you left Death Guard and Papa Nurgle came after you a little bit and said, this is happening. So tell me about this mission. We're basically, well, I love that I always use we, by the way. We planning to build and paint a competitive 2,000 point Necron army in 6 weeks for Adeptcon 2024. It's going to be competitive in the current meta, converting a tabletop plus standard, and avoiding your signature 4 a.m. hotel bathroom painting sessions, which we stayed together at LVO, and I can say for sure that this did happen, and I was supremely surprised to see you hovering over the bathroom sink to get the best lighting. It was good times. So what's the plan?
Yeah, I'm starting to immediately regret this decision. Give me what, 3 years to get my Death Guard army up to par, and you're right. I immediately got struck down by Papa Nurgle. Like, how dare I even think about painting another model, let alone Necrons? So definitely got hit with the bug last week. So I was kind of down all last week, wasn't able to get much done. But thankfully, as I talked about, maybe I forecasted it in terms of kind of creating some squish times in there, so that way you can catch up easy. They're built there purposely. If you set too rigid of a timeline, the smallest thing in life could happen and could set you back. So it kind of worked out. Hopefully for this kind of experiment, if you will, for me, because normally take forever to paint something. This is you create this army and get to a really good point. But knowing me, I spend so much time converting stuff that I don't save enough time to actually paint it. So there I am. And anyone who stayed with me in an event knows that if they go to the bathroom at 4 a.m., that's just me in the bathroom. I'm like perched up on the sink because the light has to come this way to hit the model, get all the details. So hopefully I can plan this out successfully enough. I don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. the night before or the morning of an event to actually get some of these finer details done. That's the plan.
I just love Wine Brad showing up to realize that you are awake and ready to go, painting, getting the best light. I said, I don't even know what's happening right now.
Look at your face. It's like, because you knocked like politely and then you came in, you're like, whoa, Rude, I don't know what's happening. That's cool. Like it was too much. And then you just like quietly shut the door and come back. It was
So tell me the status update. Status update slide completed weeks 1, 2, and 3. And this week is week 4 for finishing converting and building models and building bases. Are we on track?
Yeah, pretty much where I would want to be for right now. Man, those Wraiths and Tomb Blades have so many bits and pieces. You need to clean all the mold lines. Took forever, a lot longer than I thought it would, just to kind of get them assembled and then built. And then because I converted all the Tomb Blades, they're super spindly. And then also with the Wraiths, because they're so top heavy, the tails all had to be pinned at different points, or else they're going to snap with normal wear and tear. So these are some of the things that you invest time in early on to make sure that later on the line your models don't break and you thank yourself, but it does chew up a lot of time. So everything else is looking.
Has anything been out of so far, obviously, besides getting sick? Has there been anything that has been easier or harder than you thought it was going to be? And also, I just stabbed myself in the hand with something off screen, but don't worry about that. I'll just slowly die off screen. But was there, basically, in the modeling of the Necrons, has there been any surprises? And it could be good surprises, to be honest with you. Either way, how has it went so far?
No major surprises. I think just like surprises in a bad way, realizing all the bits and pieces, and then they kind of have to clean. And so things have been kind of definitely setting me back, getting sixpence setting me back. So you're kind of having to cut corners where you can, the best as possible. But I think one of the benefits are is that as I paint these, models, I'm actually listening to like audiobooks about the Necrons. So I am learning more about them and learning kind of how much of jerks they are in a lot of ways.
Yes,
But
terrible,
also
terrible.
but also understanding like how the army fits together with different units. I think with lore, you understand more about the units more and how they kind of come together. And like Nia's practice, was it Nexus? What's the GW? I think it was a release for like ninth or 10th. The little mini series they did on YouTube was really cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was actually really nice on that. I liked it
Yeah,
a lot. What's funny is because I actually really didn't like the Necron lore for a long
Mhm.
time, and I thought they did a really good job in some of the novels that came out. The Infinite
Mhm.
and the Divine was fantastic, and I
Mhm.
really enjoy playing. I'm a lore guy, as I will
Mhm.
always shamelessly self promote myself with my lore cast, but I really enjoy playing armies that I really enjoy the lore from also. So having a cool army, like a cool looking army, with an army that I think is cool from a lore perspective is actually a really big deal to me. It's kind of cool. And I painted
Mhm.
5 models this weekend.
You did. You did. Everyone give Brad a small clap. There's proof online, so you know it's real that he actually painted some models. So get ready because if they get delayed anymore, Brad, you're gonna be helping me in the bathroom at 4 a.m. of Adepticon
Just
to
letting you
get this
know the
card.
quality may or may not suffer just a little bit. Tell me about this
Yeah,
updated timeline because a lot of things have been done.
yeah, yeah.
You've
So
got.
where are we?
I'm impressed right now. I have to give you super props on this.
Mhm.
As you're, but knowing you before your timelines have been pretty elephant-esque,
Mhm.
slowly going across the plains, and
Mhm.
now you are just clipping off these status completes. Tell me how about that.
Yeah, I mean, what the picture kind of doesn't tell is that it's not just taking a kit, cutting off the sprues, and then assembling it. I'm doing massive conversions along the way. So when I actually make these completions, it's a lot more than just, oh, did I build a wraith or build tomb blade? No, each tomb blade takes a lot of extra work because of how I converted them. You'll kind of see here in a little bit, but I've just kind of been staying the course, getting my hour in every day, and then also just staying motivated. So knowing that like, hey, I have an objective each week keeps me on track too. That's just the way that I'm built. But it can also be a good motivator for anyone else to kind of set small, attainable goals. If you're like, hey, I got to build 2,000 points tomorrow, like no one's going to do that. And they're going to feel, really overwhelmed by it. But if you say, hey, I can get this like one unit done by like tomorrow, you're much more likely to accomplish that if you just take small bites. But yeah, so this is where we're kind of at. Just finish building up a few more units, making some decisions. You'll see here in a little bit of where I want to go with them, but overall, really impressed on how they're all coming together.
I like it. Let me give you some bro tips here. So, pro tips for building and converting. Let's give it. I mean, you've shown that you have some serious skills in this area. So give me a little bit. Give me some mojo here. Give me the juicy. Since I am now a pro plus plus painter, I need to know these building and converting tips to get my score up maximum.
Yeah, hopefully something in this, PowerPoint. This is like the money slide because it's kind of the focus for this week is, conversions. But what are some things you can do universally to really stand out? We talked about the lore a lot of it. So some people are very diehard lore, like I will paint Ultramarines, Ultramarine blue, or I will play, Blood Angels red. Some people really like to stick to the color theme, but I think to excel and to really stand out and to really catch someone's eye from like 10 feet away in a hall and draw them in to come actually see your model, you got to give them something they've never seen before, whether it's an army with an unusual color scheme that still looks really cool or a concept that's kind of new, something that really grabs their attention. And then there's more to it if you want to be a plus 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 painter, but I call it the 6 and 6. You got to have something in your army that draws someone from 6 feet away to come closer, and then you got to have something that draws someone to get 6 inches away from your model. So we'll talk a little bit about that when it comes to painting next week. But just for now, just like, try to push yourself to come up with a concept or a paint scheme or some conversion that no one's really seen before. Can go a long way. That being said, you don't want to look like a quilt that's been like pieced together with different pieces of fabric. You don't want to have one paint scheme here, one paint scheme there. Really pick a theme for your army at the beginning and really stick with it. It helps, stay coherent. And if an army looks coherent, it actually is a lot more appeasing. When armies are too disjointed or aren't harmonious to each other, it really is a sore on the eye. Your eye will just look at it and be like, I don't know what about this, but I really don't like it. So you got to make sure things connect, and keeping to a theme can help be a really good compass for you to stay in the right direction. All right, so I've been to a number of events. I've won Adepticon's GT before. I've won the Long War Doubles painting, the Long War Doubles, team event for overall. I've won Nova. I've won a lot of big events. And the more events I get, I realize that not every rubric's the same. So you kind of have to be aware of that. Is your goal to win something for a specific event? Well, you really got to tailor it to that event. And so things you can do to kind of get some conversion points can be something small, but it definitely gives you options. So by adding extra bits or head swaps or things like that, you can definitely go a long way. We talked a little bit about that last week, but I really want to hit that home. The smallest things or adding something unique can go a long, long way.
Tell me about. Awesome. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say too is that for this army kind of plays out is that if you want to add like weathering to your army or you want to add something with OSL, by adding extra bits to your army, it sometimes gives you a little bit more of a canvas to actually paint stuff. Like for this Necron army, I'm adding some cloaks, all right? So by doing that, I'm giving more surface area to not only add some weathering that may otherwise not fly a Necron model, but also you can go back and do some freehand on the cloaks and things like that too. So by adding one bit, I'm not only getting conversion points, I'm getting weathering points, I'm getting freehand points, all from one bit. So as you have to develop an army, as you build it, start thinking the things I'm adding, will this give me more surface area? Now, say you love the GW models, you love them as is, out of the box. Well, maybe add something to the base. You can add a flame to the base or a little lantern or something, and you can add some object source lighting coming off of the lantern, something like that. So don't limit yourself just to converting on the model. Adding some environmental stuff to the base creates a big picture for the world. And I think that's really, really important. And something that may not come up on the slide, but give the judge something they've never seen before, but also help draw them in by creating a world that you want your little duders to be living in. I think it's really, really important.
Tell me about sub-assembly. You should say sub-assembly are your friend for painting, but don't waste too much time. So give me what you mean by don't wasting too much time on sub-assembly here. Like, how can you maximize? Right now, you're obviously on a time crunch. So tell me how you're using this, and other people can use this to maximize what they're doing. But obviously, tell me how to not waste too much time doing it. Like, basically, what is your timetable, and how much is too much here?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things you kind of feel out. If you have like every appendage on a different, a little blue tack to a paper clip to a piece of cork or something like that, that's not going to work because it takes so long for you actually to set it up to actually then go ahead and airbrush it. So I start with the basics. Keep your bases separate from the model. That's a great place to start because you can do the bases really quickly and then attaching the model, you're good to go. If you have the base on the model, sometimes it's hard to get underneath there a little bit. So I try not to have more than like 2 pieces per model. So for most of my guys, I'll have like the main model, the base, and then I'll have like their cloak, or I'll have a special weapon or something like that. So try not to have more than 2 pieces. Also, number them. This duder goes with this thing that goes with him. Take a little Sharpie, put a 1, 1. Next guy, 2, 2. Pair them up a little bit too, so that way you're not playing the head scratching game of like what part goes to who. You'll thank yourself tremendously later down the line. I'm not going to say I've done that before, but I've definitely learned that lesson the hard way. But try to feel it out. Don't try to go too many pieces. Just try to break it up for easy convenience to kind of get to the hard to reach places. Now, if you don't have time, like I don't have time, but if you really don't have time, just build the model, keep the base separate, and then glue them together, kind of assemble them together at a minimum. But I think definitely there's some room for some assemblies to get to the harder reach places. Now, a lot of people are not going to get into those places that you're trying to hard to reach anyway. So it is a step. Some assemblies is a step you can skip, but sometimes it's trial and error. And also, too, as you make sub-assemblies, it can make harder to kind of unify two pieces together. So think about this. If I put two pieces together, are there seam lines? Are there a joint line? Anything like that? So a tip you can use is just take some plastic glue, attach two pieces of a model, let it dry. It's going to bleed out a little bit. Let it dry, and then when you come back, you can just shave off that, and it's actually a smooth line a little bit. So that's like also a trick you can do. Huge eyesore is when you see a seam line, like a big one. I know a lot of Necron, Triad Stalker, I'm using the bits there, have like two pieces of lead that come together, a huge mole line. So you got to go back and clean those up a little bit too. So that's where you got to play this game a little bit of what can I spend time on to get the best bang for my buck. And I think covering up seam lines takes a little bit of time, but is a huge overall impression to an army if you do it just right. Now, as you're going through this process, it can be very daunting because you can kind of be second guessing yourself a lot. So something you can do is ask an expert for advice. Don't ask your friends. They're going to say it looks like trash. I don't see it. Sometimes it could be counterproductive because they're not, not giving you honest feedback. They're kind of maybe joshing a little bit. What you really want to do is focus in on like, hey, Judge, I'm trying to go for this concept, or I'm trying to pull this off. I think I pull it off, but what do you say? And it actually someone who knows what they're doing and say, hey, I see what you're doing here. Maybe you want to try this to do a little bit better. So tell them what you're trying to go for. And if you really have to sell it, then it's not really effective. So definitely, get some constructive feedback by someone who knows what they're doing. Maybe it's your resident expert at the local store. I get messages all the time from people I've never met, but apparently have seen my stuff at different events. And I'm always kind of giving them feedback on suggestions that they may have. But then that's also how they give me suggestions on stuff that maybe I wasn't thinking of before. So it's all part of this community and coming together. So tapping into experts can be a great way, and they would love to do that. And then also in terms of this whole process is definitely pick something you want to work on. Work on something that you find passionate and you really want to go for, not what others want to see. I think a lot of times as you reach my level or you reach sometimes going for Golden Demon we have coming up, people sometimes will paint just because they know what the judges want to see. If you go that route, you kind of run the risk of burning yourself out and then maybe losing out some enjoyment. But if you're going for an army that you really love and you're having a blast doing it, and it comes out okay, well, at least you've had fun along the way. So don't ever lose sight of that too. So that's a big part as you're in this early phase of a project in terms of building, converting, is definitely stick to what you know best and what you like to do.
Tell me about Necron Void Reaper conversions. Because
all right, so
you are converting. This is the conversion week, my friend. This is the conversion week. See, it was so nice. I said it twice. Rock this up.
Yeah. So this Necron theme, this Void Reaper is definitely kind of bringing a Grim Reaper style aspect to it. So the centerpiece model is going to be the Nightbringer, and then the rest of the kind of army flows with it. So here's just some things that I decided to do and some challenges that I faced and had to kind of call an audible to make it work. So the wraiths, I wanted to create some variation, but only 3 come in a kit. So if you have 18 of them, well, that's going to get really boring really quickly. But what you can do is maybe pin them, make some extra high or maybe some extra low, kind of create some variation. Also, a trick you can use when converting is think of 3. You want to have big, medium, small. Whether it's rocks on a base, have a big rock, have a medium rock, have a small rock. Just creating variations in the sizes can be helpful. So again, you're not going to do too much with this, but just by creating a little bit of like a 1/2 inch here, higher, 1/2 inch lower, and then keeping one in the middle, has had a dramatic effect on actually creating some more dynamic poses with this. So I tried adding robes. I tried so hard. The wraiths are a center point of this army in terms of model and units, but I just could not make it work. It looked too gimmicky. It just wasn't organic. It didn't flow that well. I tried and tried. So I decided, you know what? Why am I giving myself a headache? So I decided to go without robes on the wraiths because I just didn't like how it was looking. I tried a lot of different stuff. But what I did see is that actually there's a Tomb Stalkers, I think, the little centipede Necron models have these cool antennae. And I had some extra bits, so I said, well, there's at least something I can do. I can add antennae to these wraiths, and you will be shocked by just adding 2 antennae sticking out how awesome this army is already looking. So a little conversion like that has actually gone a long way.
Yeah.
So I couldn't make the actual close work, but I found an alternative that can still give you a lot of points and actually make the model still look really, really cool.
And, for people watching this later, when you're trying to make dynamic pose with a unit such as a Wraith that's very fragile, feels like it's going to break if you look at it wrong, what are some of the keys to just giving it more structure while still being not in a static, boring ass pose? Like, how do you go about, what's the best way to go about that?
You got to pin. You absolutely 100% have to pin. If I had an MVP next to my hobby knife, it would be a little small pin. If you don't have one, get one. Pinning will save your life. It does take a little bit of trial and error a little bit, but pinning 2 points together is way more effective than just using glue. So what you really need to do is pin your models effectively. And I told you, like, I have actually a pin from the model to the base, and I have another pin at another point in the tail, and then sometimes I have a third pin at the waist. So it takes multiple pinning points, and that's where it soaks up a lot of your time, but it makes it so much more durable, especially if you plan on traveling and going to a lot of events. Like if you snap a Wraith and you use plastic glue and snaps at the base, there's no way you're getting that back on in an event. So invest a little bit of time in terms of making the structure sound your model can be really, really helpful. Now, if you're really struggling, you can be kind of clever with the base a little bit. You can build up the base to actually support the model a little bit. Maybe it's actually kind of subtly like grazing against a piece of urban terrain or a building or something like that. So sometimes you can build up stuff to the model to help support the weight. If a really fragile point at the bottom's, kind of making it really tough. Also, the bases are sometimes a way you're kind of messing around with the model. You can maybe make it diagonal with the base. So instead of the model being flush, you make a diagonal base, then the model's a little bit more on the side. And that makes it actually really sell that the fact that these things are like scurrying about. So that's what I did with these models. They could say, hey, what's going to hold that? It's a whole other talk. You can use Sculpey. You can actually use a solid clay, bake it, and actually that makes it a lot stronger for the pin to hold on to as another little trick. So pinning 100% your friend. If there's one thing you learned today, it's don't wake up at 4 a.m. the day of an event to finish painting. And then 2, get a pin, a pin vise.
Those are 2 things you should be doing. Tell me about these Tomb Blades, these flayed ones, because you had talked before about how you were looking at different Nighthaunt and things of that nature to make it different because, again, the Grim Reaper theme of this. So you want multiple models to tie into this theme. How did you go about both of them? Because Tomb Blades, same weapon loadout on every single model. We're using a decent amount of them. Same thing with the flayed ones. What were your thoughts and going outsourced to make these? Tell me what you're thinking here.
Yeah, the flayed ones are really easy. The Nighthaunts already have this very dynamic range, and so I utilized those models, just cut off the arms and added flayed one arms and that talons, but those talons are super spindly. So those have been really hard not to break. They probably are going to break. So I got to find something for the next event that's a little more effective. But that was really easy. I added a Necron head where normally the skull would be for the Nighthaunt model, and then I added the flayed one spine to the back. So that didn't take that very long to do. I went back with some Mildy Put and cleaned up all the seams. And those are good to go. But the real hard one was the Tomb Blades. Tomb Blades, I decided to do a custom conversion to make them look more like jet bikes. I saw it online. I'm like, I absolutely have to do that. And I immediately regretted after cutting up the first one. It takes so long to pin multiple spots. But I think I might take... there's some Nighthaunt models of where they're riding steeds. There's only 2 of them in a kit. I need to make 12. But definitely can maybe come up with something with that. That's something one of the last projects I have yet to finish in terms of how I really want to make this work.
I just love I immediately regret it. Like, as soon as I was doing it, like, no, this is a terrible idea.
Yeah, those Tomb Blades are a pain. There's so many little bits. Weapon loadouts had to be magnetized. You just got to keep going. You got to keep going, keep going. But yeah, for this one, I can actually just run them as normal jet bikes. But I'm deciding if I actually want to add a Nighthaunt rider. But not a lot of them fit neatly in there, so it's going to take a lot of conversions. I'm going to save that to the end to see if I actually have time to pull it off. But it would look cool because if I actually add a Nighthaunt model on there, maybe I use like Necron legs and torso and add Nighthaunt like robes. We'll see if I can pull it off. But if I can, it'll look awesome. If I can't, then no one may know and never be the wiser because I'm converting it up. So
Tell me about this
the
crypt.
crypt
I'm excited about the crypt. When I read this, this is the one that really feels spicy to me. This is tasty.
Yeah, so there's only one Cryptek model, so I had to make three different variations. So I did that by taking their cloak that it comes with organically, cutting it off, shaving it down, and then using a Nighthaunt. I think they're not the Banshee or the Harrow models. So one cape goes in the center, one goes left, one goes right, and then that kind of creates some variation a little bit. Just got to turn the head of the actual necromancer. That's another big thing too. The last thing you should assemble on a model is the head. The head that wait to the very end because wherever the head's focused, that's going to draw your eye. The first thing you look at in a model is the head and the face. So wherever that's going, you're going to follow that first. Second thing you look at are the hands or the weapons. So always put the emphasis, you get a little bit of time on the head and positioning, making sure it's actually focusing on where you want to go. But always do it at the end because you'll be surprised by just moving around a little bit. So for these Crypteks, I'm actually having them ride spiders. I've kind of converted them up a little bit, riding spiders. They have the cloaks, and then I changed, I think, the weapon blade a little bit using some extra bits I had too. So these look really, really cool, especially we'll see how they look painted up. But the hard part is fitting them on a 50 millimeter base, but I think I've made it work.
I like it. So
Yeah.
you've got tell me about the bases, because you said before earlier, actually you said last week also, that the base is something that even if you're you're a GW purist, you can really tune up your base a bit to make it unique and your own. What were your thoughts on these? Are you spending a lot of time on these, or is this an idea that you have that you want to make simplistic so you could mean your time constraints, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, there's a YouTuber, James Wapple. Check him out on YouTube. He's a ton of great stuff. He has a lot of free videos up there, but he uses this Green Stuff World roller. So you take this clay that you can bake in the oven, you flatten it out, and you take a roller and you roll it on top, and there's a really cool Necron theme. So I'm going to be doing that. And what that will do is we'll kind of create a little bit of a slab, like a ruined flooring. So for these bases, it's just going to be something you want to create a little bit more unique. But what's something I can do quick, fast, in a hurry is just take a base, throw some cork on it, snap off a little bit of this, clay ruined flooring, throw it on top, take some glue, add some stones there and some gravel, you're going to be good to go. Whenever you put sand on a base, always cover it up with PVA glue, water down. It will thank you, or also start rubbing off as you start painting it. No one wants that. And I think I'm going to add one or two crystals each base. So again, this seems like it takes a long time. It's something you can knock out if you get the clay, molds done. Something you can knock out maybe an hour, the entire army, if you do it right. If you go with sub-assemblies, and kind of just break it up and do a little bit of assembly line, you actually should be in a really, really good spot. So for this army, I want to do something unique. But the problem is if you just take a base and put cork and then pin a model onto it, the cork is super flimsy. So the model's going to snap off. It's not going to work. But by adding this hardened clay little ruin level, or take a piece of plastic card and throw it on the top of the stone, the cork will be like a stone rubble. What you're doing is actually creating another support, so that way you pin it in, it's actually rock hard. So again, these are like some small things that you may not realize, but as you're building, conceptualizing an army, these are things you're going to want to think of to make sure that you don't have a headache later on. And this ties into the last model, is that the Doomstalker. The Doomstalker, I hate those. It's a very tall, thin model. These legs look ridiculous. Huge cannon on top. It needs some beefier legs. So I had some Triarch Stalker legs. It took a little bit to get the legs to fit onto a 90 millimeter base. But between the cork and different things, I was able to kind of make it work. It's maybe about a half inch outside of it. But because the base goes like this, it's able to kind of make it work. So again, this is one of the advantages of building your bases after you build the army, because therefore you can kind of tweak the bases a little bit to fit the models or come up to the model to be more stable. Yeah.
Let's look at some work in progress. Walk me through these. So we're gonna go with the wraiths first.
Yeah, so I talked about the antennae a little bit. So this is kind of just a basic example. You can tell there's the variation. There's a tall one, medium one, small one. And also you have their eyes going different directions. By having a few of the shorter guys going left and go right, and create a lot of variation just based on their gazes a little bit. So that's kind of what I thought. I'd give an example of what the antennae kind of look like. And I actually really like how they came out.
Well, let's talk about something that you went pretty unique on. Let's talk about these flayed ones. Because you got some stuff on these bad boys. These guys look crazy, and I'm digging it.
Yeah, they're super spindly. I got to think of something else because they're going to break immediately after one event. So this might be like the only ride or die time for them. But yeah, it was kind of easy. You just kind of snip off the arm and you're able to kind of pin the actual, the flayed one arm into place. You add the head, skull. So just the Age of Sigma or fluidness of this model just makes them look crazy. So it took a little bit of mix and matching with the flayed one claws to make them look just right. But these guys look like they're like just swarming through the battlefield. I don't know if that's even a word. They're kind of just going through a battlefield, running around, all sorts of craziness. So I really like how this satisfies the Night Reaper army, but also speaks to flayed one's crazed nature. So again, by just doing one conversion, you actually can change a lot of the tone of a unit big time.
I like these guys quite a bit. Now, how hard is this to basic Brad? Let's not go as low as me, but someone that's starting out doing a little bit more conversions, how hard was this conversion for it?
I would say it's very, you have to have a lot of patience. It's a very delicate pinning. So to be very delicate, you can't go hard and fast. You go very slow. So I would say probably like intermediate level, maybe like closer to like higher end, just because one wrong slip with the drill, you're going to punch through the arm or punch through the model, or it's going to be off-centered. So if you're patient and take your time, it's not so bad. This is not a conversion you want to rush, because if you rush it, you're going to break the model. It's going to look terrible, but not impossible. The concept's not so hard. Switch out the arms, carve down the head a little bit, make it fit, and then glue the spine on the back. So it's not conceptually too hard, but execution wise, definitely is a test in patience. So slow down, take a deep breath, but something maybe even you could pull off.
Whoa. Well, what I'm excited for is hearing what the final process is going to be. Tomb Blades. You said that you hated everything about the original idea you had. So walk me through what I'm looking at and why. Like, what are you going to do? Or at least what do you hope to be doing? How about that?
Yeah, so I was originally going to run just 2 units of 3 just for shenanigans, taking objectives, but I was talked into it by someone who knows what they're doing to do maybe beefier units. So with these, I like them because they're a lot more jet bike focused. The weapons are magnetized, which is really important, but I really like how it's set up. And now I'm at this like stuck point. What do I do? And maybe even you guys can help me with it, because I think I'm going to save this project to the end, of this unit to the end of this project, to figure out what I want and what I'll do with it. I've been playing around with just having that as is because it looks super cool. Definitely it's kind of like a floating kind of drone flying around. But if you look, you could actually have a Necron guy seated in there. Now, should I have just a Necron guy seated in there, flying around with it? That's not too hard to do at all. Or should I go next level, try to see if I can find an Age of Sigmar Nighthaunt model that may actually fit where the rider would go? And then somehow, I don't know how it's going to work, but you got to connect that rider to this thing with only limited options. So how do I make the arm fit as a handlebar? Do I not? How do I make this work? So if you guys have some tip or tricks, let me know how you would see this is the problem. How would we solve it? Do we solve it again just leave it as is? Do we actually add a Necron rider dude, on it, or or do we actually try to figure out some way of doing with a Nighthaunt model? And if so, which Nighthaunt model would that be? I think there is again two riders on a steed, like two steeds with riders, but there's only two in the kit. So you got to make 12 of these. So how would you also do that in terms of variation? So just some ideas you got to think about too as you kind of create this of, is it just a matter of like shaving stuff down, cutting it, make it work? Or is the fact of like, there's no way to physically connect like this arm way back here to it also riding. So we don't have a lot of time with this too. So whatever we decide, it has to be quick and fast. Sure, if I had all the time in the world, if it was my Death Guard army, I'd take my time with it and make it look perfect. We just don't have that time. So definitely open to suggestions if you guys have any.
How about the flowing cloak off the bike? Flowing cloak. That's what
What you mean?
Okay. I want a rider with a flowing cloak. It's a bike. You can have a flowing cloak. Awesome. Let's talk about next time. Any questions you want to put up, please throw up questions for Matt. It helps us out, really gets us where we want to be focusing on. Obviously, we're going to do a progress update. We're going to have more work in progress photos, and we're going to talk about how to build a quick display board. I'm excited to see that. I'm going to rock and roll. What would you like to end with, my friend?
Yeah, thanks you guys for going on this journey with me. Thanks, Brad, for the opportunity to talk it through. It's kind of kept some wind in my sails, especially when I wasn't feeling so good last week. So I appreciate all the support and the opportunity, and hopefully I can stay on track. Fingers crossed.
Can do. Until next week, Queens wave us out of here.